evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in our country over the past week or so. And as is customary, we have always a host of important issues to discuss in any given week. This week is no different. So I want to begin by welcoming our viewers from West Coast Berbice, New Amsterdam, Quarantine, who are joining us on television. Welcome once again and good evening. To our viewers and listeners who are joining us from Freedom Radio, Rob Street, Georgetown, good evening and welcome. And last but not least, to the thousands of persons who are joining us on Facebook Live right across Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, and further afield. Welcome, to another program of Issues in the News. I want to take this opportunity, as I normally would do, to invite you to invite a friend, send a share, press that share button, inform a fan or a friend to join us tonight so that we can have a full and lively discussion. So please invite your friends and press share on that Facebook so that this program can be shared on your page or your Facebook account. So I want to begin by recognizing that the government's We Care cash grant outreaches are ongoing, and you would have seen how many ministers are out right across the length and breadth of Guyana, meeting with our parents, meeting with our students, meeting with our teachers to ensure that every single child in every single community receives the cash grant We Care voucher, cash, not voucher, cash. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Ministry of Education for coordinating a massive program. The program is smoothly coordinated and very effective and efficient. We were in Region 9, as you may be aware, and we spent the weekend in Region 9. I think about nearly 8 ministers, I believe, were there, scattered across the region, deep in the mountains, in the valleys, across the rivers, across the creeks, wherever our Guyanese are living. We fanned out to ensure that we touched every single community in that region. That region is so vast and so beautiful. The scenes were mesmerizing, absolutely mesmerizing. It's a pity that not many of our Guyanese brothers and sisters are able to visit these places. Hopefully that will change in the near future. But when one looks at the giant rolling savannas, the huge green mountains, the animals, the birds, the waterfalls, the creeks, the rivers, and of course the beautiful benabs scattered in the bushes. It's a breathtaking sight at almost any location that you visit. And our Amerindian brothers and sisters were very excited that so many persons were visiting their villages and their communities. They expressed deep gratitude for the cash grant program, and they thanked the government sincerely for ensuring that each child in a public school in those communities received a cash grant of 19,000 each. This was not an easy task, and it is not an easy task. because you had to fetch that money. Each box had envelopes with the children's name on it, based upon their names on the register in the school system. That would have been a very, very massive undertaking. And the Ministry of Education officials must be congratulated, the teachers and all those who worked, and in particular, of course, our minister, Priya Manik-Chan, who worked so earnestly and sincerely in ensuring that this program fanned out so splendidly to ensure that every child, every single child, was touched. And that is what our government is about. I normally say that we do not believe that we must administer the affairs of government by being seated in our air-conditioned offices in Georgetown. We must go to the people. We must go to the communities. We must go to the far-flung areas. We must go to the mountain bottoms. We must go to the hilltops. We must go to the riverine areas. We must go to wherever our people are located. Speak to them, interact with them, listen to their concerns. And that is the style of government that we are practicing. Right through, when we went, we spoke to the Tushaus and we spoke to all the administrators in those localities to ensure that they submit recommendations for the 2022 budget. That is how we govern our country. The budget that will be presented and the budget that is presented in any given year is not a budget that is formed in isolation at the Ministry of Finance or at the Office of the President. It's a budget that is the repository of recommendations, of suggestions that come from the people right across the length and breadth of our country. The We Care Cash Grant Program is a resounding success. So Region 9 has been completed and we are now back in the coastal areas. Region 3, I believe, was completed this week, and the program is now moving to Region 6. And also we have taken the program to Region 10. Region 10 may have been completed already. Of course, we can't get to go to every region. The ministers have to share the responsibilities, so you are assigned specific areas and specific locations to discharge your functional responsibilities under the program. And the program, as I said, has been a resounding success based upon the response we have received from the parents, from the teachers who are also parents, and from all those with whom we made contact. Everyone was high in praise for the cash grant because obviously things are not, as we would like them to be in the country. We are reeling under a global recession arising out of the COVID pandemic. Not only Guyana, but right across the globe. There is a complete slowdown in the manufacturing process across the globe. Raw materials are scarce. Persons are not working. Factories are not functioning at optimal potential. And all of that results in unemployment. It results in rising prices. It results in rising costs and naturally rising cost of living. Then in addition to that, our economy has been devastated by the worst floodwaters we have seen in recent times. That has caused tremendous setback to our economy. Our cash crop industry has been devastated. The agriculture sector has been devastated. And millions and billions of dollars in physical infrastructure has been damaged, as well as private property. You really can't put a monetary value on the damage that has been done by the flood. So while all of this is taking place, our government still finds resources to give cash grants of the type that we have seen. You will recall that we made this promise that we will deliver these cash grants, that we will restore it when we get back into government because the APNU AFC scrapped it, that we will restore it and we will increase it every year until it reaches $50,000 per child by the end of our first 5 years in government. And we are working assiduously and fervently in order to deliver that promise. I keep saying that we do not make promises lightly. We do not make promises unless we are sure that we can deliver on those promises. And we are asking you, we are asking the people of Guyana to hold us responsible for the promises that we make. While that program is continuing, our housing sector is galvanizing into action and is turning out hundreds and thousands of house lots for our people right across the length and breadth of Guyana. Earlier this month, our housing ministers were in Linden and they distributed 440 odd house lots in Linden. I reported to you then that the minister said, based upon the records of the Ministry of Housing, that in 5 years that the APNU AFC was in government, in that 5-year period, they distributed 360 house lots. In 5 years. In 1 day, we distributed 440 in Linden alone. And Monday, our 2 ministers and the staff of the Central Housing and Planning Authority and the Ministry of Housing distributed another 1,000 house lots. Another 1,000 house lots at the stadium at Providence. And those are low-income house lots. So 1,000 house lots were given to the poorer people in our country. And that, again, is a reflection of our priority. Education is our priority. Educating our children is our priority. You see our COVID-19 drive, and you see the emphasis and the importance that we are attaching to COVID-19 and having the vaccines available. Well, because our people's health is of absolute priority and is of absolute importance to us. And that is why today only I dispatched a guarantee to the Johnson & Johnson company on behalf of the government of Guyana, informing them that the government of Guyana will absolve all or any liabilities arising out of the use of the vaccines. That is an international requirement. All the vaccine companies are requiring that, and we have been complying because we don't want any obstacles to stand in our way and to stand in the way of our people getting the vaccines. So I use this opportunity again to appeal to you who have not been vaccinated to please get your vaccines. So our Ministry of Housing will also be on the east coast of Demerara, I am told, I believe in August. And another set of house lots will be distributed along the east coast of Demerara. I know that there are hundreds, if not thousands of families on the east coast of Demerara who have applications pending at the Ministry of Housing, and I know that they are getting a little frustrated because the wait is long, but surely and slowly but surely, we will deliver on the promises that we have made. Recall, we are not like the previous government. We are not distributing lands in fields and in pastures and in swamps and in bushes. We are developing the place. We have to put in roads. First of all, we have to landfill. Then we have to carve out roads. Then we have to put in drains. Then we have to ensure that electricity is available. We have to ensure that potable water is available. And then we allocate house lots. We demarcate house lots. We distribute house lots. So it's a process. This land has to be prepared. The infrastructure has to be put down. These things take billions and billions of dollars to get done, and they take time. These are cane fields. These are swamp lands. These are cow pastures that are being converted into massive housing schemes right across the length and breadth of our country. And that is the momentum that is pushing the economy. Once we get back that housing drive going, then the construction industry picks up. And once the construction industry picks up, it has a spin-off, a domino effect, and a whole set of other sectors will become vibrant again, and our people will begin to get jobs. That is how we run this country. Imagine when a house begins to be built. First of all, you have to get a crew of carpenters. So at least 5 persons are going to be employed for about a year, because a house will take an average about a year to be built. So that's 5 families getting immediate employment for the rest of the year. Then, when you start to dig out the foundation to build the house, you have to get sand. So the sand truck man, the porter on that truck, sometimes that truck is not driven by the owner. Then you have to go and buy the sand, and then you start to do the foundation work. So you just check how many people are benefiting from one house lot, one house being constructed. Then you have to get cement, and you have to get all the hardware materials. So the hardware industry gets the business, and it grows like that. Then you have to get wood, so the lumber business, the lumber industry gets some business, and it goes on like that until you have to go to get a loan at the bank. The bank gets a business, a lawyer gets to do a mortgage, and it builds like that. And just multiply that one house lot 1,000 times, because it's 1,000 house lots were distributed, and you will understand what the housing sector alone can do for our economy. These are the ways and means that we keep the economy going, and we keep money circulating, and we keep jobs going and being created on a continuous and constant basis. And that is how we do it, and that's how we have been doing it, and that's how we have moved Guyana. I got the opportunity to, when I was flying out of Region 9, to look at the housing schemes. Look at Petition, massive housing scheme. That entire place was cane fields and abandoned cow pastures. Look at Diamond, perhaps the largest housing scheme in the Caribbean. Look at Perfect Harmony. These are massive, massive investments that we have made, and the people of our country are the primary beneficiaries. And that is the style of government that we are offering. What is there coming from the other side? I don't hear them anymore. People don't bother with them anymore. They have become completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. So there is nothing much to say from them other than the fact that whenever one of them speaks is something divisive or something negative, nothing positive to say. For example, they are condemning the cash grant. They say that we are wasting money. They say that we are creating a dependency syndrome. I don't know why these people don't be quiet. It's better they don't say anything than to say what they are saying. How can investing in our children's education ever be considered a waste of money by a leader? You cannot be a leader if that is your mentality. if investing in your children's future, in your children's education, is a waste of resource, if that is a waste of resource in your mind, then you are not a leader. One would have expected that they would have demanded rather, more from the government. Instead of 19,000, I would have expected them to call for 25,000. Instead, they are condemning the 19,000 as wastage, as creating a dependency syndrome. There's Bright Boy Norton. He wants to sound very intelligent, He's a university lecturer. So he speaks about a dependency syndrome. Well, my friend, if educating our people is creating a dependency syndrome, then we will gladly do that. I am happy to do that. I am happy to be part of a government who is creating that type of dependency syndrome. So, and I want also, but I will deal with that at a later stage. Today, the Ministry of Legal Affairs issued a press release in which it outlined that a case filed by a gentleman whose name is Colin Harding was dismissed today by a High Court judge, and the judge ordered Mr. Harding to pay to the Attorney General and to a police constable, Devin Singh, $1 million in costs. Now, this case is worthy of discussion because this case demonstrates many things. In this case, Mr. Harding claimed that while in police custody, he was beaten badly by Devin Singh, a police officer, and that Singh, this police officer, inserted a baton into his anus. That was the allegation. And when those allegations were made, of course, the human rights organization and a whole host of persons started to condemn the police. Obviously, this was happening in 2014. In 2014, March, thereabouts, I was Attorney General. And they believed everything that Harding said. I remembered, as Attorney General, I was forced to issue a statement in defense of the police because we called in a doctor to examine Mr. Harding. And Mr. Harding did not have any injuries supportive or corroborative of the allegations of violence that he was making against the police officer. If someone insert a baton in your anus and you are examined by a by a doctor, obviously the doctor must see evidence that would support that allegation. Nothing was found of that type. No injuries. So those allegations, I knew since then, were manufactured. And I knew that once this case comes up for trial, they will not be able to prove those allegations because we have all the medical records. But because of politics and because of the lawyers involved, they made it a huge human rights issue. This poor guy, Devin Singh, I remembered, had to leave his home and move out of the village because he was constantly receiving death threats, and his parents were receiving death threats, and his families and relatives were receiving death threats. This case excited a lot of hostilities in the media, in the social media, and all over the country. And I knew from the beginning that they were fabricating these allegations because the doctor found no evidence of violence. Today, when the case is fixed for trial, and when Colin Harding is to come into the witness box now to prove this case, did not show up. His lawyer write a letter to the judge and say they can't find him. I don't even believe that story. I don't even believe that story. And that is the type of damage that can be done when reckless and allegations are made that have no basis whatsoever. No basis whatsoever. Immeasurable harm was done to the Guyana police force. Immeasurable harm was done to the state's image. This thing would have been reported in all the newspapers. And today, when he has his day in court, when he has the opportunity to come and tell his story, he runs away, according to his lawyer, Mr. Nigel Hughes. But as I said, I don't believe that. The entire case was a fabrication from the beginning. And I say no more. Thursday coming would be the elections petition appeal continuing. You will recall that we began arguments some months ago at the level of the Court of Appeal, and Thursday we are expected to conclude those arguments in relation to that appeal. And after that, of course, we have to await the ruling. As I said, I don't anticipate that we should have any difficulty in having the appeal dismissed. As I said, they have not presented any convincing argument. They have not presented any cogent argument to support their appeal, and I expect a ruling in our favor. Well, August the 2nd, which is this weekend, we will be celebrating 1 year in government. Remember, August the 2nd is when the government was sworn in. So we are celebrating 1 year now in government. And I would like to reflect briefly on that 1 year and what we have accomplished. One cannot begin such an analysis without referring to the events ante August the 2nd. The event ante August the 2nd begins from March the 2nd, when we had the elections. And for 5 months, for 5 long months, Guyana was on trial. Democracy was on trial. The rule of law was on trial. Our electoral system was on trial. Our judicial system was on trial. The people's will was on trial. Guyana was on trial for those 5 months. And what we would be celebrating come August the 2nd is the victory of the rule of law, the victory of the Constitution, the victory of the people, the victory of democracy. That is what we are celebrating. Nothing, no progress, whether it's economic, whether it's social, whether it's technological, no progress can be made in the absence of democracy. And we in Guyana have witnessed that, because we lived during 28 years under a political dictatorship when democracy was absent. Democracy was chased away from this land. And those very riggers and fraudsters in 2020 attempted again to slaughter democracy. They attempted again to massacre the Constitution. They attempted again to steal the will of the people. But 100 countries stood by our side. Our people stood their ground. Organizations stood up and found their voices. Patriots stood up for their country. Diplomats stood up for diplomacy and for international rule of law. 100 countries stood with Guyana against these miscreants and tyrants in their attempts and thwarted their attempts to destroy the nation state of Guyana. And these people are still around. They are still around. And that is what we are celebrating. We are celebrating the triumph of good over evil. That is what we are celebrating. But the work and the struggle is still ongoing. Because notwithstanding the fact that they were caught red-handed on camera, red-handed, it's called in law in flagrante delicto. They were caught in flagrante delicto. They were caught with their hands in the cookie jar. They were caught red-handed attempting to steal an elections. And yet they walk around as though they are the victims. And they refer to the government as being installed. These people are the most barefaced and shameless people I've ever seen in my life. And they are there in the courts attempting still to justify their actions. That is what these election petitions are about. An attempt to justify their actions. But what is not justifiable cannot be justified. What is not justifiable cannot be justified. So we are celebrating 1 year. And it is important that we reflect upon these events. Because if we forget our past, we may be condemned to repeat it. A lot of people forgot our past, and that's why they got into government in the first place. A lot of people forgot their past, they forgot their history, and they trusted them one more time in 2015. And they saw again what these people are capable of, what their propensities are, what their tendencies are, how they treat government, how they spend public money, how they trample upon the Constitution, how they behave. So we have to be careful that we don't make these errors ever again. And that is the first thing that we must celebrate, that we won back democracy. On the last occasion, it took us 28 years to win it back. This time around, we were able to win it within 5 years. And that is what we are celebrating. But beyond that, look at what we have achieved. When we took office, we had no budget. It was in August, only 4 more months for the year. Empty treasury, no money, and we started from there. We inherited an economy that was grinding to a halt. All the productive sectors were underperforming. The major players in the timber industry had gone. Barama and the other Chinese company, they chased them out. The gold mining industry was taking serious blows. because of the imposition of a whole series of tax measures. Rice, no market, and the rice farmers were bawling because of the high rents and rates and D&I fees that were being imposed upon them, both by Lands and Surveys and the MME. The sugar industry, well, that story is told over and over again. 7,000 workers sent home. The Amerindians, 2,000 of them dismissed one day. The bauxite industry barely ailing. The economy grinding to a halt. And then COVID came and compounded the problem. And that is the economy that we inherited. That is what we inherited. No new investment in 5 years. None. $200 tax measures. 200 tax measures imposed on the backs of Guyanese. VAT on water, VAT on electricity, VAT on medical supplies, VAT on building materials, VAT on agricultural equipment, VAT on heavy duty equipment. The rents and D&I charges raised from 3,000 to 15,000 per acre per year. That is the economy that we inherited. People had no money. And for that 5 months, the country basically ground to a halt. You had COVID shut down. That is the economy that we inherited. And it has not improved since. But we have been able to find money to give a 4,000 cash grant for school children in August. We gave a $20,000 cash COVID grant for public sector employees. We gave public servants a 5% increase in salaries. We gave 25,000 cash grant, COVID cash grant. We gave $19,000 We Care Because We Care cash grant to our children. We remove VAT from water. We remove VAT from electricity. We remove VAT from medical supplies. We remove VAT from agricultural equipment. We remove VAT from building supplies. We remove VAT from medicine and pharmaceuticals. And I can go on. We reverse the land charges, the D&I charges. We have put back into the pockets of people billions and billions of dollars. The 25,000 COVID cash grant was $5 billion we returned to the people. The removal of VAT amounting to billions of dollars, giving back to the people. Greater disposable income. Where did we get the money from? As I have explained during the cash grant program, the money comes from the wastage, the halting of the wastages and squandermania, the stopping of the runaway corruption that was taking place, and prudent management of the economy. Sugar is back. Thousands of sugar workers are back on the job. The rice farmers are doing better, but they have been devastated by the floods. And the economy is picking up slowly. All is not well. We would like to see much more taking place. But it's only 1 year that we have been in government. Look at the performance of any given sector. Look at our agriculture minister. Every single day he's in the fields with the farmers. Our local government ministers every day in the fields. In terms of the legal sector alone, you have the Law Reform Commission just appointed. The number of bills that are in the Parliament, I can't count them. There are too many. And how many are in the pipeline? There is a Bail Act that will come, Food Security Bill, Food Safety Bill, Tissue Transplant Bill, Public Health Bill, Solid Waste Management Bill, a whole bundle of legislation for the oil and gas sector. We give out there is an award that will be done by the tender board shortly for $2 million US, an international consultancy to redraft laws in the whole oil and gas sector. We are doing a set of new laws for the housing sector, for the public health sector. All of that is in the pipeline. We are in the process of revising the laws of Guyana to bring them up to date. We are doing law reports from 2007 to 2020, hopefully. All of that is in the pipeline. The Law Reform Commission will be sworn in, and they will begin a whole agenda of their own of law reform. That's quite apart from what is slated to be done by the government. Of course, we have the electoral reforms. I have churned out one set of drafts already, and that's with our political leaders. They are consulting on that, and soon that will be made public. The constitutional reform process will soon start. So in 1 year, in what we have achieved in 1 year, I don't think that APNU AFC achieved it in 5 years. And we have done it under very dire and constraining circumstances, flood and COVID. And that's why we want normalcy to return. We want normalcy to return. In this period, in this 1 year period, we have received 7,000 applications for our online scholarship program. We anticipated or prepared for 5,000. We got 7,000 applications. That is another program that would have been a resounding success, or that is a resounding success. So if we go at that same average, check how many students we would have put into university on that program alone for the next 5 years. 35 students, 35,000 students. 35,000 students we would have put on that online scholarship program if we are to go with 7,000 per year. And that's quite apart from our primary education system, our secondary education system, as well as our tertiary education system, the University of Guyana. These are signal accomplishments that we have made in this 1 year, although we have had so many setbacks. We have 2 budgets that we passed within this 1 year period. One for the 4 months, and then we had to pass one for 2021. And the economy is not performing in the way that it should be, because as I said, we are affected by the global pandemic. Businesses are not open still, restaurants are not open, people are not traveling in the way that they should, investors are not coming in the manner in which they would like to come. But we are getting there. We are getting there. So I believe that we have a lot to celebrate in this 1 year, and ministers will be speaking to you on television programs in relation to their respective sectors, saying what they have accomplished during the 1 year period. Hopefully the airport will be completed shortly, and that will bring a massive project to an end. I believe, yes, sometime in September, I believe that those works should be concluded. This year, as you may have read in the newspapers, the CGX group of companies will begin work in Berbice, and they are building a deep water harbor, and they will begin their drilling operations. The pipeline is being worked on. The legal issues are being addressed to ensure that the rights of our people, the proprietary rights of our people, are protected, and that wherever the pipeline runs, the law will address any issues that may arise out of that program or that initiative. I don't want to say much at this point in time. I suppose we will discuss that a little later when it goes to cabinet and it's approved at that level. But seriously, I don't think that in any given period we have seen a government perform in the way that we have performed over the past year, having regard to the fact that we had to operate under a natural disaster and we have to operate under a debilitating and devastating global pandemic. I don't think that any government had to deal with the type of situations that this government has had to deal with and has been able to acquit itself with such distinction as we have done. And I'm not saying this because I want to blow our own trumpet. I am just stating the facts. And we have, of course, an opposition that offers us no assistance whatsoever. In fact, all they do is oppose, depose, denigrate, divide, and destroy. That is all they do. Divide, depose, oppose, denigrate, divide. That's all they do. So we can't look for opposition for help. They are going around the country telling the people not to take the vaccines. That is the type of opposition that we have. You would have expected that one thing that they will not politicize and will not kick about like a political football is the public health issues or the health of our citizens. But nothing is beyond these people. Nothing. You heard Mr. Harman speaking about the vaccines and had to swallow back his words. One set of misinformation. Same thing he said about the oil and the way the price that the oil is being sold for in India. Complete fabrication. Complete fabrication. And these are the statements that come from the opposition. And of course they have some internal political struggles that are ongoing. They have not been able to hold their Congress, and I suppose we will hear about that in due course, but there is serious infighting going on there as to who will be the next leader and who will not be the next leader and who will take a lot of internal matters that they are grappling with there. But in terms of performing their functions, they are not performing to anybody's expectations. So we also have Parliament. Parliament will be sitting on the 3rd of August, and we have a packed agenda. I guess we will be doing some TV programs in informing you about the series of laws that we are taking to the Parliament, and most of them are for second reading, so we will have a lot of debates, a lot of speakers at the sitting that is coming up on Tuesday. So we have that parliamentary agenda to deal with. So we have a packed agenda that we have to deal with, and I'm trying to get this thing to read some of the comments, because a lot of people want me to reply to comments, but I'm not seeing the comments as I'm not seeing the comments as they are coming up. I wanted to reply to some of the comments if I can see them, but I'm not seeing them. Oh yes. Let me see. Somebody, okay, when you receive a gift, I'm not seeing anything interesting here. I wanted to. Somebody wants to know about the scales that APNU bought in 2016. Well, they purchased these scales from, first of all, they violated all the procurement rules and regulations and provisions of the Procurement Act in order to sole source this scale. They sole sourced it to one of their friends, this short guy, who was offering them political guidance and advice and was doing political polls for them. Some company connected to this guy, they purchased the scales from. The contract that they signed said that 50% must be paid upon the signing and 50% of the price should be paid when the scales were delivered. 100% of the purchase price was paid upon the signing, and the scales have never been received. Nearly $400,000. A forensic audit was done, and I have passed the forensic audit report to the Criminal Investigation Department with a request that there be a full investigation and the institution of criminal charges if and where necessary. We are also in the process of filing civil proceedings in which those who are complicit in that transaction will be sued. The Fiscal Management and Accountability Act provides that where there is a wastage or misappropriation or negligent spending or misuse of state funds, of public monies, the minister implicated can be sued, and any other public officer who may have aided and abetted him in that transaction. So the report is being examined, the documents are being reviewed, and more likely than not, legal proceedings will be instituted against that subject minister and the public officers who are implicated with him. So that is the update that I have on the scales matter, and of course the police at the Criminal Investigation Department have their hands full because they have so many matters to investigate. We will soon, the investigation into the thieving of the army, the fuel, that investigation is coming to an end, and we will get a report shortly. And then we have the missing millions at GWI. That forensic report or forensic audit is ongoing, and we will hear from that forensic report shortly. Once it is made available, I suppose the government will make it public. But all of these transactions have a criminal component to them. The way that the monies were mismanaged and misused and converted to people's own use screams of criminality and criminal conduct. And therefore, each of them will be sent to the police for them to conduct criminal investigations. So we have a lot of issues going on, and as I said, it's 1 year since we have been in office, and I don't think anyone would dispute that in that 1 year period we have accomplished a great deal under very trying and extenuating circumstances. the circumstances to which I have alluded earlier. This is where I have to say goodbye. It has been a pleasure to have been with you over the past hour or so. And until we meet again, I may not be joining you Tuesday because, as I said, we will be in Parliament on Tuesday, but I will have a video that I will release to coincide with this program. So if I am not live, then a video will be aired in substitute of this program. So please enjoy the rest of the week, take care, and have a great rest of the evening. Thank you very much.